This is the city in Texas that CNN White House correspondent Jim Acosta mocked President Donald Trump for visiting in January. This is the city that Acosta and other liberals said was safe and secure and insisted that President Trump was fear-mongering when visiting. And this is the city, McAllen, Texas, and the New York Times has now reported is home to one of the most horrific rape houses you would ever want to hear about. It was the summer of 2014, and Melvin, a 36-year-old mother of three, had just completed the journey from her native Guatemala, crossing the Rio Grande on a raft before being led to the house in the Texas border city of McAllen. For weeks in that locked room, the men she had paid to get her safely to the United States drugged her with pills and cocaine, refusing to let her out even to bathe. "I think that since they put me in that room, they killed me," she said. "They raped us so many times they didn't see us as human beings anymore." On America's southern border, migrant women and girls are the victims of sexual assaults that most often go unreported, uninvestigated and unprosecuted. Even as women around the world are speaking out against sexual misconduct, migrant women on the border live in the shadows of the Me Too movement. Here in McAllen, Texas, this community's consistently been ranked one of the safest communities in the country, Acosta said in January. "So, the president picked sort of a curious spot to make that case," he told CNN anchor Anderson Cooper. "There's not a wall all along McAllen, Texas. There are various spots where there's no wall at all," he said. "There's fencing, there's chain-linked fencing. I went to an RV park this evening where there are RVs right along the river where people can play shuffleboard and drive around in their golf carts and they're not being besieged by convoys and caravans of migrants coming in and causing all kinds of crime and mayhem," he said. He even shared stories on Twitter singing the praises of how safe the town on the border with Mexico was. "The stories are many, and yet all too similar. Undocumented women making their way into American border towns have been beaten for disobeying smugglers, impregnated by strangers, coerced into prostitution, shackled to beds and trees and in at least a handful of cases bound with duct tape, rope or handcuffs." The New York Times found dozens of documented cases through interviews with law enforcement officials, prosecutors, federal judges and immigrant advocates around the country, and a review of police reports and court records in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona and California. The review showed more than 100 documented reports of sexual assault of undocumented women along the border in the past 2 decades, a number that most likely only skims the surface, law enforcement officials and advocates say. In addition, interviews with migrant women and those working with them along the border point to large numbers of cases that are either unreported or unexamined, suggesting that sexual violence has become an inescapable part of the collective migrant journey. "It does not sound too safe, Jim,"